Hello, welcome back to the Build and Invest show. Today, I'm going over my week, all the things I basically learned in running my first 24-hour employee, um, and just what I'm seeing in the market and in the business world. I think this show, just if this is the first time you're watching, this show is for people who are trying to stay on top of what's going on as business owners and investors, right? So most investors are business owners, but if you're not one of those, it's also a good place for you to keep track of what's happening in your world to make sure you're in a good spot for whatever's coming. So right now, what we're seeing is an explosion of AI agents. This, I think, is the biggest business of the future right now because have you ever heard of the dead internet theory? Right? The dead internet theory says most of the internet is already mostly bots. This is what they think. Nobody knows for sure, but there have been statistics that say, a certain percentage of internet traffic is bots. And if you watch what's going on right now, you can only see that it's going to grow. Like you can see that now they're doing a bunch of crazy things. Like I'll show you right here. Can you see this? Yeah. So you can see right here that Coinbase is doing hackathons and USDC are doing hackathons. They're giving AI agents their own wallets. And why is this important? Because as an AI agent, you are doing things on the behalf of your owner, lack of a better word, and things cost money. So you don't want to give an AI agent access to your bank account, your credit cards. So it's better to just put money in a wallet and let them spend that money. And because they don't need KYC and stuff like that, well, they can't qualify for KYC and stuff that banks make you qualify for. You are giving money to something and they're going to be able to do whatever they need to do on your behalf. So you're seeing now that the base blockchain is becoming a hub for this. And let's see if we can watch what they're showing. Can we hear this? There's no audio. So if you don't know, Claude Code is kind of like another thing that's blowing up. If you're a business owner and you're not playing around with things like Claude Code, Codex, another thing you're being left behind on. In the past month, these things have exploded in capability. If you're on X, you will see everybody's talking about it. Something's changed in the last month that has made these things way better. So if you see here, they're basically showing this AI agent spending money. So let's bring it back. Show me my AWOL wallet. Recent USDC transactions. There you go. In and out. So think about this. In the future, this money moves instantly. Okay, so email. He put his real email. Wow. Address, base chain. How much went through? You see his ETH. Wrapped ETH. And you can see 40 cents. And that's another thing that this allows that really wasn't possible before is microtransactions. Microtransactions are dollar transactions, right? So imagine selling something for $1. In the old world, you couldn't really do it because there were all these fees that chopped into that. Like for instance, there's like a 30-cent fee for every transaction. So if you have $1 transaction, 30 cents of it is automatically gone. And then there's a percentage and there could be another fee here and there. And you look up and on $1 transaction, you may make 40 cents or something like that. But with wallets and USDC, you can send $1 and the dollar will get there and you get the whole dollar. Of course, depending on if you're using another service or something like that, I don't know. But if you send $1 to somebody, they get the dollar instantly. Not a real dollar, it's a digital dollar, but it represents $1 you can spend. And that's why this is the future. Not only as business owners, we need to be on top of that. And of course, if you're if you've watched my content before, you know I've created a company around this idea of building treasuries for humans, businesses, and now AI agents. And we spend USDC all day, every day. And it's just better as a business owner. So that's really interesting. I've been seeing a lot of hackathons and things like that going around based on this movement. See this 402 payments? That basically means agents spending USDC on the blockchain, but in the real world. It's crazy times where we're moving into the point where there's going to be more robots spending money than humans. It's not here, but it's coming. And you can see it very clearly as you keep looking. And look at this. In the past 2 weeks, 24,000 agents have been created with wallets. And I know those numbers probably are like, yeah, whatever, there's 8 billion people. But it's exponential how big this can be. So imagine you as a person. You have things in your life. You got your kids, you got your home, you got your car, you got your fun, vacation, all these different things. You're going to want to have an agent help you with all those things and keep track of what you're spending. Make sure you're doing everything in the right way so you don't get lose money. These are all going to be agents. In my view, my estimation, every person is going to have many different agents for themselves. I don't know. This is where I am still trying to figure out if we are going to have one agent that does everything or we're going to have multiple agents that do different things. The reason why that is because the way things work right now, agents they have a limited context. And what that means is they have a certain amount of information that they can base what they do off of because the AIs have a limitation of context windows. So if you create specialized AI agents that have a context window that's very precise, like I said, all right, you're my vacation agent. Your job every year is to find the best place for me and my family to go to at a price point of X. I want you to talk to all of my kids, my wife, my father, anybody who's coming with us and say, where do we go? How much are we spending? And make it happen. That's a context that you might want to just keep within that agent. But I do see a possible path, which makes sense, that eventually the context windows will be endless. So you're going to just be able to have one AI agent that knows everything about you. And then it can make even better possible decisions. That is going to be the question. But we are in this moment right now where this is happening. Trustless agents. So again, what that means is you just give this thing money. It does what you want it to do. It can pay for things. And you just live your life, whatever that means. We're going to see what that means too. And if you can hear this, you can probably build one. So if you're a business owner, you want to really pay attention to this, because if you're a business owner, I think we're hitting our app store moment for AI. If you were around when mobile phones first came out, BlackBerry, all that, and then iPhone came out, then the iPhone App Store came out, and people became millionaires I remember there was like a beer app where you turn it and it was beer that looked like anime. The guy made $1 million on a beer app. Again, because he was early. If you try to make a beer app now, you're not making anything. And as more time happens, those app stores get more flooded with products. So it becomes harder and harder to stand out. But in the beginning, you have a real opportunity. And we are, I would say, weeks into this. Weeks. Not to say weeks into AI, but weeks into this app store moment, because something happened where now you can run your own apps, your own AIs locally. It's called OpenClaw, and I set one up. I'll talk a little bit more about it. But this is what this guy used to run Google, is what he says.
If you really want to make money, it's actually easy. Found an agentic AI company. And I don't mean one designing agents. I mean build an agent to do something. This is the agentic period in AI. And for the next year or two, everyone's going to build agents. The agents are all going to compete. If you build a better agent than anyone else, you can probably build one incredible company. And if you really want to make money, it's actually.
So that's what I actually believe this. And if you listen to my content or you know me for any amount of time, I've been building agents for years. First one was Stackit.ai. The idea I always thought was humans were just not investing enough. Like most humans are not investing enough. Most of the capital is owned by a small percentage of the world. I thought Bitcoin and Ethereum would allow people to own more assets in the easiest way. So I created an AI agent to do it. It basically manages your portfolio. You can borrow off of it without being liquidated. So that's been going on for 3 years now, actually. That product is going into its 4th year. But in this boom, I can't help but create more. And I've been doing it over the past month. I created going on my 3rd new agent that I've created. And we'll see if these, it's an app store, more apps in the app store. And also crypto is in a weird spot. Many people are scared to death, but I'm going to show you some interesting things that may make you think different, because right now is the time. Everybody invests when the prices are the highest. We see this. We have 3 years of data. I can pretty much time the tops based on deposits in our platform. We can just see people pouring in with FOMO. And literally, the top, if the top was, it looks like it was, 126,000 a few months ago in October, we had our most deposits on that day. And that is like normally what happens. I'm really trying to fix that. Fortunately and unfortunately for humans, though, AI doesn't have emotions, so they won't get wrapped up in FOMO. So what I'm hoping is humans just take on the AI agents to let them do what they do, and humans just be human, because humans trying to time the market and invest, it's just bad. It's a bad recipe, and everybody's using agents against you. So you're basically trading with emotion against people who are not trading with emotion. You're going to want an agent to do your trading. If you're trading, I don't think trading works, because there's just going to be smarter agents trading against you. I think the only thing you can do is dollar cost average. Let the agents do what they're doing. Ride the wave up, borrow to live, and eventually you'll be better off than most people, because most people they don't even know what's going on. If you're not watching stuff like this, you have no clue what's going on. So that's really interesting. And yeah, I'm creating a bunch, but I think this is a huge opportunity. And then this is what's going on with crypto, which is very interesting. Right now we at below the all-time high of the previous top, and we at the lowest fear and greed index number that I think I've ever seen. Those two things usually mean a great time to buy. But on top of that, there's this.
Fucking slimeball alive, and I stay.
That was funny. Also, if you want to learn how to borrow off your Bitcoin and Ethereum without being liquidated, there's a link in the description. That's what Stackit.ai does. Now let's go.
Guys, Donald Trump is the biggest fucking slimeball alive, and I say this as someone who will benefit from his corruption. Today, Trump filed for 2 crypto ETFs with the SEC under the Truth Social Funds brand. The same day, the White House says trillions are waiting on the sideline, only days after the Treasury Secretary pushed for crypto legislation, and the CFTC launched a crypto innovation panel. The crypto innovation industry will benefit massively, but there's no president who's made more money while in office pushing an agenda focused on benefiting his family's own pockets. Here are the numbers behind the Trump crypto empire. World Liberty Financial generated $1 billion for the Trumps in under 16 months, in addition to $500 million they sold to a UAE royal family firm days before the inauguration. Eric and Don Jr. launched a Bitcoin mining company, and they've earned nearly $250 million from that. Trump Media added over $800 million in Bitcoin to the balance sheet, a clear conflict of interest. And now there are 5 crypto ETF products branded with Truth Social, each collecting fees on billions in potential assets under management. Look, I'm grateful that this regulatory green light will likely help crypto holders like me. But let's not pretend that this is about freedom or decentralization. It's about extracting as much value as possible before anybody has the fucking balls to call out this family and charge them with corruption.
Yeah, that's a take, and it is kind of valid. Like at the end of the day, first president ever to launch a meme coin. A few people really benefited from that. Like I think it's 17 wallets really made all the money. And you know who owned those 17 wallets? Then he had like a show where people can come if they owned some of his meme coin, and people spend crazy money to get to go to that. And he just like waved at them for 5 minutes. So this is a crazy time. But here's another video that I think answers more of what's going on. And I haven't watched it all, so I'm going to react with you.
Something on a very low time frame that it hasn't. Bitcoin just did something on a very low time frame that it hasn't done for the past several weeks since it was trading above $90,000. And that means that currently it is attempting to put in a reversal, which of course means if it's successful that we could see the bottom, or at least a local bottom, being formed right now. Now, as I told you, the point of this channel is now to be as extremely objective as we can each and every day. And on these market updates, we're going to be giving you the most important update, which is, of course, the price update, which often reflects the most objective truth in the markets, which is, are there buyers or are there sellers? And right now, what we can see is that for the first time, Bitcoin has actually gotten above a prior 15-minute candle high. You can see this, the prior high was about 68,400. Since about $90,000, this hasn't really happened, where Bitcoin was actually trying to make it above these 15-minute candles and then just started dumping. And what you'll find is that as soon as a local 15-minute high was formed, Bitcoin pretty much hasn't broken it all the way down. It's just lower and lower and lower. It does not go up on these 15 candle time frame. And that's partly what's been so incredibly damning from this Bitcoin sell-off, is there's just been a relentlessness to it, a relentlessness to this sell-off. And as you can see, we had this huge cascade, but even as we came up, we didn't get above this prior 15-minute level. So in my opinion, what we're seeing here is actually pretty significant, that we could get above this $68,400 level.
So I'll be honest, a lot of this stuff, I think it's like horoscopes. People can see whatever they want to see in them. No offense if you believe in that stuff. I don't know. It's just like every horoscope can really be your day or your month, right? And with this, I've been watching this stuff for years, and these people always think they know what's happening. And then something happens, they're like, oh my God, we never would have saw this coming. So again, take all this with a grain of salt. But when you add what the previous video said, which is they're about to release ETFs and, you know, they enrich themselves, you could ride their wave, but it also means the price can fall. Like I was talking to some friends who are really into the Bitcoin space, and they said they think it can go down to 26,000. Nobody knows. I don't know. Like I'm hearing both sides. So let's see what he says, where he thinks it's going.
Of course, I mentioned on yesterday's live that during these 15-minute highs that are getting put in, you can kind of easily short, knowing that your invalidation is very close. In fact, I put it on a short this morning just as we were tickling this level, and I put my stop loss just above it, and it stopped out for a fraction of a percent. And that's okay. That's okay to lose small when your chance to win was actually pretty significant, because most of these moves have been, 4 or 5%, which if you're using leverage can be significant as far as wins. So what we're seeing here is that Bitcoin needs to keep this train rolling. If we are going to see a reversal, we need to see it continue to take out these little mini bosses before we get to the first very big boss, which is, of course, this $72,000 level. This was the source of the big breakdown, and really, this marked the bottom of that very significant range that we established from the prior high when we first had the Bitcoin ETF go live back in March of 2024. It also marked the ultimate low of Trump's initial tariff scare in the spring of 2025. So getting above this area between 72 and 74K, that is by far the biggest area to get over before we should really start getting incredibly bullish. But I wanted to point this out because on a low time frame, we've seen Bitcoin finally break out of this just crushing downward spiral that it's been in, like I said, with one cascade here, but it's been in this all the way up to the $90,000 territory. So this is a massive step forward, at least for Bitcoin, bucking the initial trend. It doesn't.
I don't know. It is where, like, yeah, you could look at all these charts, but let's see what he's talking about next. Gold. All right, let's see the economy.
Now, I think we should talk about something else, which is that we have evidence today of the economy reaccelerating. And I think that this is a very, very important point because that brings in other trades into the equation. Remember, the point of this channel is to make the most money possible. And as I've said over the last few episodes, I am interested, obviously, in buying the ultimate lows here in bear market town in crypto. But I have come to terms with the fact that there are a lot of reasons why crypto isn't pumping right now. There's a lot of FUD, there's a lot of uncertainty, and quite frankly, there's a lot of other sectors in the economy that are pulling marginal speculative dollars away from crypto. And to be very clear, those are AI, robotics, and the energy, the bottlenecks that are powering these new emerging fields. Those are very, very exciting.
So if you didn't understand what he meant there, he's basically saying people are investing in different things. AI, which right now the Magnificent Seven, and there's like infrastructure, so people are probably putting in money in like data centers they think are going to turn into AI. So there's things like that, and this is where investing is. Again, man, if you're going to do this full time, his name is Elio Trades. He's a trader. So trading is different than investing in my perspective. Investing to me is a long-term thing. You're buying something and you're saying, I'm going to hold this for years, 5, 10, 15 years. That's what real estate is. That's what stocks are. I want people to think about that like crypto, the same thing. But I know that's a difficult thing to ask. But if you're going to trade, you have to understand when you trade, you're picking a price that you're buying now and a price you're going to sell later. But what I see is people don't realize that they're actually trading. They're buying something and they're just like, I think it'll be double by next week. And then next week they need money and they're like, oh my God, it's down 5%, you know? So this guy you saw, he was timing, shorting, all that stuff. If you want to be in that world, that's a whole world that you need to really be in. I don't want to be in that world. I just want to build and invest. I don't want to trade. But I do watch the traders to see if I can learn anything.
Interesting, and if you've been playing with them at all, you'll know that they are absolutely mind-blowing in what they are capable of. They are delivering the value that they had said on the tin, and that is what I'm excited about these new emerging frontier tech fields, something that I think crypto will eventually come to do, but right now it is struggling to do. The point of this channel is to seek truth, is to make the most money possible, and that means we must be paying attention. And so why am I telling you this? It's because there's one trade that has come into clear view over the last few days and weeks, something I've been highlighting periodically, but there's a new data point that actually supports this worldview, and I wanted to show it to you. Here's Fizhao. He's, if you guys aren't following him, please do. Fizhao_Inc. He is just an incredible macro analyst here. Go ahead and gas him up on this tweet because he is essentially saying that the economy is reaccelerating.
So another thing, I'm going to give you a heads up on if you're watching this. These guys, they're right and they're wrong. You know, of course, just like anything, they're wrong more than they're right. This guy has been right really good a few times in the history I've watched him, but he's been wrong as well, right? So when you watch stuff like this, don't just throw a ton of money at anything. Again, if you don't want to own it for 5, 10 years, then you're trading and you're saying, okay, when I see this price, I'm going to sell no matter what. If I just want to make, let's say, I just want to make 20%, let's say you say, and you see that 20%, you got to say, okay, I made my 20%, I'm selling. Not, it could go higher and then I'll make more money, because that's when you get wrecked. When you're trading, you can't be emotional.
In specific, he's highlighting that there's been a bottoming and a reversal on non-farm payrolls, and you can see that this downtrend has been in effect since 2022. So this is a big change, it shows that the end of quantitative tightening is also transitioning into a period of expansion. Now, as you know, we've been talking about ISM on this channel for quite a while, and that finally broke above the hallowed 50 mark, which is, of course, the sign of an accelerating economy. We can see that the recent monthly data output was 52.6, which is a huge uptick and a great sign for those who are looking for economic recovery. So you combine these two pieces of data, the non-farm payrolls and the uptick in ISM, and Felix here did the numbers. You should check out his Forward Guidance podcast. But he showed that copper miners are effectively, when you combine these two pieces of data, looking out a 12-month time period, copper miners are the biggest beneficiaries of this combination of data. Now, if you remember, we've been heavily looking at copper as an asset over the last few weeks and months because copper is the next best metal for conductivity in producing renewable energies. It's also hugely important for military equipment and building weapons. And as you can see, the long...
Looks like a possibly good trade. Again, put money that you know you can lose, right? Always with investment, especially trading. Trading is straight up gambling. So make sure if you're going to put in money, you could afford to lose. Copper probably doesn't move as volatile as things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'm not sure how big these charts are. See as 2022, 2023, 2024. So this is a pretty sharp drop. Again, I've never traded metals, so I don't really know, but that sounded decent. All right, so let me go to the next thing.
Very bullish. You can see here, I think we should all be aware of because finally, let's talk a little bit about some AI and robotics news. This is something that I think we should all be aware of because this is the most pressing investment frontier of our time. Crypto has been on the bleeding edge of investing and risk assets for the past 16 years. I believe that it will continue to find its role within the frontier of investment. But right now, undeniably, AI and robotics are driving absolutely everything as far as real change in the economy today. So it's important that we understand and analyze these on the channel regularly. So what does this mean? And by the way, these are huge companies, $100 billion, $1 trillion companies. These are not altcoins. I do not have any special ownership of these coins, right? I see some of the comments in the comment section. No, the point of this channel has to be to cover the most valuable investment opportunities, whether they're in crypto or whether they're beyond crypto. And that's why we have to talk about this stuff. More importantly, what's very toxic, I find, is that the most valuable wealth creation opportunities are not available to everyone. This is something that absolutely must change because you have OpenAI being valued at $800 billion, almost $1 trillion, and Anthropic, Claude, Opus at $380 billion, SpaceX at $1.25 trillion, and most investors in the world are unable to participate. And as Will says here, he fully understands there needs to be some investor protection laws in place, but Americans with retirement accounts, they do have some indirect exposure here. But imagine if this value creation directly benefited everyday people, which it does not right now. And that's a problem. That's a significant flaw in the system. So this is a huge, in my opinion, structural issue. I said there should be some simple rules such as if the round is over $1 billion and then a few other pieces of disclosure are present, anyone can bid. That would be a way that essentially if there's a private market company and it gets a valuation over...
So I spent time in this world. I'm an advisor of a publicly traded company. The problem with this, and I love it. Actually, I'm part of one right now on equity crowdfunding. It's for .hip hop TLD. I think you go to invest.hiphop. I think. I'll find it. I'll put it in the link. The problem is these investments are all or nothing, pretty much, right? So these people who invest in OpenAI and stuff like that, some of these people put in hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're okay. Well, not okay, but they are okay if it doesn't come back. They're not going to be on the street, right? A lot of these people get other people's money to invest. A fund like we're doing with the Meta Bronx Catalyst Fund. So we get wealthy individuals. They put money together. We figure out which companies put money in, and we try to return them their money on top of the money they gave us. These people do that, and they're okay. The reason they do this, truthfully, is they know they have money that they owe taxes on. They've made a bunch of money, and they can afford to lose on these investments because if they lose on those investments, they pay less taxes, right? So they can do that and be okay. But regular people who may not have an extra 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 that they can afford to either make 10x, 100x in 10 years or never get it back. That's where these things are. And I've literally, Obama actually started this, and I was at one of the first meetings for this, and I thought it was amazing. I really thought it would help. But this is where I went down my path of understanding investments in poor communities, right? Like, of course, when you talk to rich people, they have money to spend and try things, and if they lose it, they lose it. But in poor communities, not as much. And we had that problem with Stack, right? Because Stack is meant for helping people who don't have much to invest, but it doesn't really work unless you're going to be consistent, just like anything, right? You can't just invest one time and expect to be rich. That's gambling again. So we'll see what they're talking about.
For a certain amount, then it should be public or available at least for the founders to take in money from anybody. They shouldn't have to pass all of these regulatory requirements that effectively stipulate for them to be accredited investors or already rich, right? Because I bet a lot of you would have bought right into ChatGPT if you could have when it launched in 2022, and you'd be up probably 50x or something crazy. Speaking of buying in early, this dude SBF would have been up astronomical if he didn't get wiped from the board, if he didn't get put into bankruptcy by CZ creating the bank run. He would have been up so huge. His estimated portfolio total would have been $136 billion. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Just look at the Anthropic shares alone would have been $30 billion of that. Robinhood alone would have been almost $8 billion. It just is insane. This guy was actually, despite all of his flaws, would have been one of the most prolific investors in the history of early stage investing. That is actually insane and mind-boggling and a bit scary.
That is insane.
And maybe it shows how insane you have to be to kind of put this money into early stage investing.
So you see, what you're looking at here is he is investing in a lot of things, right? So it's not only you got to have a lot of money, you also have to have a lot of money that you can put in a lot of things. So you can't just put all your money in one, because yes, if he knew for sure what was going to happen with Anthropic, he would have put all that money into just Anthropic because it was his biggest return. But they don't know at the time. Nobody does. The biggest investors, I've heard people put in $2 million and it's gone in 6 months. Nobody knows. That's why they spread out. So if you're going to get in this game of speculative early stage, it really only works at scale. And this is why funds hire fund managers, because they know, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'd rather give you the money. You find the 20, 50, 100 companies, depending on how the fund works. And maybe one or two of those will come back and be Anthropic style. And that's why, as a normal person doing this, you have to understand that. But again, the reason why I'm involved with the .hip-hop TLD, which means top-level domain, it means you can get, like I said, invest.hiphop. I have a few .hip-hop domain names. Domain names can't really disappear. So that's why I think it's a good investment. Again, not financial advice, is because that can't go out of business. Domain names are created by the government. So the government, it's not going to take away a domain name. They exist forever. So if you invest in that, should be some return. It may not be Anthropic level because domains are not creating that level of innovation. But that's why I was involved in it. I was involved in it early. I was one of the first investors, early stage, and I helped put together a little fund to get the first round. And that's how you got to look at it. I saw it too with the money I put in. I was like, okay, I'm not going to expect 100x here, but I know it's very unlikely that it disappears to zero. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin, Ethereum. That's why I tell people, not financial advice again, but Bitcoin and Ethereum are the assets of the future. AI agents are buying them. Humans are buying them. Countries are buying them. Businesses are buying them. Retirement funds are buying them. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to zero. They're most likely going up. How soon? Who knows? But if you look from right now to the all-time high, that's already a 2x. So if you're buying in right now, and again, not financial advice, but you can buy right now, borrow, and when the price goes up, you pay back the loan that you took out, right? And that's what houses and all these people do with real estate and stuff. Of course, you want to borrow responsibly, and if you're going to do that in different places, definitely do your research. With Stack, we protect the liquidations. Again, if you want to learn how to borrow off your Bitcoin and Ethereum without being liquidated, link will be in the description. I think on that note, we're going to end it here. And again, thank you for watching or listening to the Build and Invest show. I hope I help you take the most advantage of this next few years, because this is a generational opportunity. We have a new finance vehicle. We have a new 24-hour intelligent employee opportunity that you can build. Everybody can build it. We have things happening around the world that we don't know where it's going to happen. We're in a very interesting time, and this is when huge things happen. So take advantage.